In the dense blue of pre-dawn, Daniel Alston, night shift supervisor at the Trenton Hydroelectric Plant, scrubbed his face and prepared for another routine inspection. Up and down the control room, his colleagues scanned gauges, tapped keys, and bantered softly. The lives powered by their vigilance, millions in the city below, never entered their thoughts. A shudder, gentle but all-encompassing, vibrated through the earth. The world became suddenly, eerily silent, as if holding its breath. In a single moment, 8 billion heartbeats ceased. New York's bustling streets froze mid-stride. On a bridge spanning the Tagus, a commuter reached for her phone and simply was no longer there, her bag twirling to the tarmac. In the skies, pilots dissolved, leaving ghost jets roaring onward or spiraling into oblivion. In a Cape Town hospital, hands faded mid-suture, and life everywhere was swept away like dust in a gale. But the machines, indifferent to grief, persisted. Conveyor belts rolled, spat out unfinished goods. In Tokyo, factory robots loaded microchips into sensors for customers who would never use them. Traffic lights blinked to no audience. Elevators opened and closed for passengers that had vanished. Car alarms wailed to empty lots. The world, now one vast mausoleum, pulsed with mechanical commotion. Power stations continued to hum. Turbines spun madly, sometimes catching fire, unrepaired. Computer servers handled endless, pointless requests, then flickered out one by one, starved by neglected cooling systems or fuel. The only witnesses left were unlikely ones. In a Midwestern Walmart, a mouse darted between frozen feet of mannequins, pausing beside a checkout scanner still flashing for payment. In Paris, a sparrow took flight through a shattered subway entrance, weaving past stalls still illuminated by flickering LEDs. Nature, confused but quickening, pressed in. Deer crept through abandoned suburbs. Ivy claimed stone walls and parking structures. Without human resistance, weeds forced their way through tarmac in London's Trafalgar Square. At dusk, the cities reverberated with an uncanny symphony. Horns from distant ships running aground, isolation alarms beeping, and the deep, cyclic exhalations of buildings powered and cooled by machines soon to exhaust their hidden lifelines. Weeks passed, fires finally snuffed themselves out, or reignited from careening robots and malfunctioning drones. Reservoirs overflowed or dried up, dams shuddered unmonitored. In silent lounges, televisions played to no one, running last loops of news broadcasts frozen forever on faces that were now only memory. In time, silence reclaimed the world, only to be broken by the whispers of wind, animal calls, rainfall, and, at long last, the gradual metallic sigh as civilization surrendered its last breath. Above, satellites circled, transmitting signals for vanished hands. Quietly, the earth began its slow, graceful healing, and the grand decree of human mastery gave way to the measured, timeless cadence of the planet itself. At first, there is an eerie tranquility on Earth. Cities pulse and flicker with artificial radiance. Neon signs advertise businesses whose doors are locked. Traffic signals blink at intersections empty of cars. The hum of industry is subdued, but it lingers. Computers continue their silent computations in offices, classrooms, and homes. In control rooms submerged deep within nuclear facilities, sensors detect the absence of human presence and, following rigid algorithms, initiate safety protocols. Reactors are dampened, rods are lowered, containment shields engage. Automatic systems assume control not out of foresight, but from the anticipation of human error or absence. The world's machinery turns inward, prioritizing preservation over productivity. In the days that follow, the invisible infrastructure upon which civilization depends begins to unravel. Fuel reserves, maintained through an unceasing ballet of logistics, dwindle to crisis levels. Trucks bearing gasoline, coal, and oil halt at inoperative service stations or are deserted on highways. Pipelines no longer pump their contents toward city power plants. The last drops of energy race toward turbines, desperate to maintain an equilibrium with the past, now unsustainable. Electric lights flicker for a final time in apartment living rooms, in hospital corridors, in the corridors of power themselves. Refrigerators hum and fall silent. The soft, omnipresent glow of screens vanishes. Silence permeates, broken only by the unmediated sounds of wind, water, and distant animal calls. As the grid fails, city after city plunges into blackout, each a domino in the chain of global civilization. Suburbs become shadowlands. Landmarks, once immortalized in nighttime photographs from space, fade into indistinction on the surface below. From the International Space Station, astronauts, now spectators of a vanished world, observe the curvature of Earth. At first, their instruments register the steady patterns of human habitation. Dazzling ribbons tracing coastlines, lattices of light etching the world's great cities. As days pass, these patterns falter and dissolve until sprawling continents become indistinguishable except for lonely pockets of brightness, the final reserves of emergency power. Eventually, only the faintest embers, perhaps from wildfires or strange unplanned sources, betray that the world once glowed with human ambition. In this profound darkness, the Earth's true night returns. The stars, unchallenged for the first time in centuries, blaze in constellations unseen by most living humans. Deep in the cities, memories of light linger in phosphorescent graffiti, in the reflections from deep poolings of water, in the faint outlines of habitations now surrendered to entropy. The silence is immense, but not absolute. It is filled with questions and possibility, the prelude to whatever will emerge after the darkness fully arrives. In the absence of purposeful maintenance, the equilibrium of urban civilization deteriorates. The foundations of order, built upon routine inspection, repair, and intervention, become vulnerable to entropy. The first observable effect manifests in the failure of subterranean infrastructure. Subways, once heralded as arteries of human mobility, flood as pumps quit, and drainage systems clog. This inundation halts movement beneath the city, symbolically severing the circulatory system of modern society. Above ground, glass towers, achievements of architectural ambition, begin to shatter. The meticulously engineered facades, neglected and without caretakers, succumb to minor faults. Temperature fluctuations, wind-driven stresses, and accumulation of particulate matter facilitate fissures in the glass. What was once a symbol of transparency and strength turns hazardous, raining fragments onto the empty streets below. Steel, the core of structural resilience, initiates its inevitable return to the earth. Rust blooms on the faces of bridges and building frames as protective coatings erode. Without intervention, oxidation progresses unchecked, undermining strength and causing supports to buckle. The carefully balanced interplay of chemistry and maintenance is replaced by the simplicity of natural processes. Meanwhile, the roads, arteries of commerce and communication, crack open, compelled by patient roots of plants. Asphalt, laid by human ingenuity to resist the encroachment of life, yields to the persistent advance of grasses, shrubs, and saplings. Each fissure marks a victory for nature, as spontaneous growth instigates further collapse by destabilizing surfaces and allowing water infiltration. With the infrastructure in disarray, animals begin to colonize the urban environment. Species previously relegated to the margins, foxes, deer, birds of prey, explore the emptied streets, inhabiting abandoned buildings and parks. The cities, once meticulously ordered for human use, become experiments in ecological adaptation. Animal populations increase, relationships shift, and an emergent ecosystem arises in the ruins. Inevitably, nature begins to reclaim that which civilization once held. Vines scale the facades of toppled towers. Trees root through broken subway floors. Water accumulates in plazas, forming new wetlands. The balance tips from artificial order to organic dynamism. Where maintenance ceases, the boundaries between civilization and wilderness dissolve. The city, no longer governed by human hands, becomes a testament to the persistent, shaping power of natural processes. In this renewed landscape, the absence of maintenance transforms urban decay into environmental succession, illustrating that order is sustained not only by construction, but by continual care. In the silent aftermath of a vast, undefined catastrophe, the planet's landscape transforms beyond immediate recognition. The absence of human presence is palpable, echoing in the collapsed skeletons of once ambitious skyscrapers that pierce the horizon like broken teeth. Most buildings, formerly beacons of progress and shelter, crumble into heaps of concrete, their steel rebar bones exposed beneath drifts of dust. Streets, designed for the ceaseless movement of people and machines, vanish as forests unfurl their ancient authority, sending roots curling through fractured asphalt and leafy canopies arching over forgotten intersections. Bridges that once connected societies, engineering marvels suspended over rivers and ravines, succumb to gravity's patient assault. Their fragments litter riverbanks, toppled in the absence of maintenance, while nature quietly claims the space, wrapping stone and steel in moss. The rivers, liberated from confinement by levees and concrete, embrace new courses, forging paths as whim and rainfall dictate, muddy and wild once more. Above, the sky is both empty and alive. Satellites, abandoned and untended, spiral downward. Some burst apart in the upper atmosphere, scattering debris too minute to find, while others, intact, streak as fiery remnants before crumpling into the world below. Their falls are both spectacle and symbol, an epilogue to an age when humanity watched itself from the heavens. With every calendar page turned by wind instead of hand, the air grows cleaner. Once invisible but lethal, the byproducts of human industry had lingered in invisible clouds, shaping climate and health in unseen ways. Now, the breeze carries the scent of damp earth, of uncultivated blossoms, of wildness reborn. Insects, birds, and mammals adapt to the changed ecosystem, filling niches long denied to them. Yet even as flora devour glass and concrete, and fauna reconsider the landscape, distinct traces of what came before persist. Concrete monoliths, shattered but stubborn, anchor the memory of city grids. Bits of plastic, bottles, fragments, synthetic fibers, weather slowly in soil and water, more impervious than stone. Overhead, blackened roadways pattern the land, now navigated by deer and foxes instead of wheels. Humanity itself is only a rumor whispered in the roots and rivers, a presence marked by what remains more than what is. If any observer, alien or future animal could read the rubble, they would find a narrative of ambition, invention, and error. The world's renewal is not a simple erasure, but an endless process of reclaiming, adapted to what persists. Concrete and plastic, the traces of a vanished civilization, wait amid the wild for time to finish their final edits. In this new chapter, Earth breathes gently. Its recovery is not triumphant nor vengeful, but inevitable. The green and the wild, resilient and resourceful, rewrite the quiet story over streets and skylines where no voices answer, leaving a world rich with life but haunted by the shapes that history cannot quite erase. In the vast, unending expanse of time, Earth is both patient and unaware of its former inhabitants. Long after the peculiar species called humans vanished, glaciers began their slow and inexorable crawl southwards, swallowing remnants of cities with icy indifference. Skyscrapers once defined by human ambition sagged and toppled beneath the weighted persistence of ancient ice. Curious rivers, set free from concrete veins, braided new paths into valleys, erasing the cartography of civilization. Hidden beneath this tumult, tectonic plates shifted. Mountains rose and fell with cyclical grace. Continents imperceptibly approached each other or drifted apart, and continents wore new faces. From this slow collision and separation emerged landscapes unrecognizable to any being who might have once called themselves king. Within these transformed terrains, life persisted. Species previously endangered by human machinations reclaimed their dominion in forest and tundra alike. Wolves, once persecuted, became silent arbiters of ecological balance. Birdsong echoed in city ruins turned wild gardens. Fungi devoured and rebuilt, their networks etching complex communication through soil and root. Yet all this transpired without ceremony. No evidence, save the faintest of anomalies, a half-buried alloy, a pattern in carbon, perhaps an odd isotope within the crust. Archaeologists of a distant future would search the substrata and find ambiguity. Was this once the work of intellect or the chaos of chemistry? The planet, blank-faced, offered neither apology nor confirmation. The end of humans was not an end at all, for endings are constructs of beings who perceive themselves as central. Earth only continued, impassive to the absence. It was not a matter of how the world would fare without human caretakers, because Earth had never truly required us. Regeneration was its unseen task. Adaptation, its silent craft. Here the narrative fractures. For this story was never about Earth's resilience, but the fragile contingency of human existence. Without the Earth, without the substrate upon which they built language, art, science, humans disappeared into irrelevance. Their dreams, their anxieties, all required a stage, a constant medium. So the real question, what becomes of us, bereft of the context and continuity that Earth provides? In the silence that follows, no voice rises from the dust to answer. The Earth will always continue, but without it, so much more than civilization is lost. The question of our existence unravels, unasked and unanswered, among the glaciers and the shifting plates.